So, what are we at? 120?
Bo and Jimmy came in and reassessed it this week, and we put in chairs that would put us to the max.
Gotcha. So everyone's got to be seated.
So if everyone is seated, well, that's why we're asking people to sit, because if all the seats are full, then we're at capacity.
Yeah. We're live. Are we live streaming? Okay.
Anybody can start. Yeah, you know, you get around a lot.
Like Mindy's dad, who was in the restaurant business, and he was in it all his life. People word gets around, but it's not all at the same time. No. Hey, Brian, I'm good. How are you?
Maybe I'm not supposed to come up. Ron's going to retire.
No,
He retires last day of this week.
no, I didn't know that. I hadn't heard anything about
He
it.
had such a good time.
Oh, gosh.
They
It's a good job.
reverently clean and get in these.
We're about ready to get started.
That's always what we should aspire to.
Well,
He was under a lot of pressure when he'd been asked for the school principal and all that.
yeah. You did
It's a
such a
good
nice
trip.
job. Good. Well, he's done a nice
Can you
job.
believe I got a son retired 60, he's 6 years old.
Oh, I thought you were just 25 there.
That's just about, I don't know what happened there. He got ahead of me.
Somehow.
Sure.
I think that's true.
Skip's not going to be able to make it this evening. Good, very well, good. He had an emergency. Yeah. It's about as much information as he gave. I'm sure he did, because I don't ever recall Chip messing with a meeting. It's kind of like I'm here. We got 3 minutes. According to what time do you have? Okay. So I don't remember Chip ever missing another meeting. It's like the mayor. Oh, no. No, I got a call this morning from him indicating that he had a situation.
I hope he's okay.
Oh, absolutely. He is doing better. He's still it does. Yeah. And he had double bypass, so. Yeah, exactly. He needs to get strong.
He already.
No more agendas or no one to speak? We have no one to speak? Okay.
Huh?
think it makes sense or something? We're live streaming. So we're live. Guys, we got one more minute.
I didn't see anybody.
Okay. Good. Very good.
Up the ante on everything. That ups the ante on everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to give you. All right, if everybody is ready, well, I'll call the meeting to order and I'll go to Council Member Wiggins for our invocation. Melanie.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we pray thanking you and praising your name for such a glorious day today. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed us on us this day, that you would keep us, guide us this night. We thank you for all of those who give their lives and serve every day to keep us a free country. We pray thanking you for our local safety and law enforcement who continue to keep us safe. We thank you and praise your gracious meeting tonight to have this opportunity. We pray these things in your precious and worthy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Melanie. If everyone please rise and join in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, ladies and gentlemen, City Council, and we are short 2 members this evening. Our mayor is still recovering, and he does send his best. But it's tonight, and she's going to be with us. Unfortunately, Chip had a situation to arise that made it impossible for him to be here tonight. So we'll go ahead and move forward. First thing on the agenda for this evening. Oh, by the way, there was no one to sign up, Darcy. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to us on anything that's not on the agenda this evening? If you do, we'd like for you to sign up, and that way we can recognize you and give you an opportunity to come up and speak to us. We have some sheets in the back, I think, still. No, that's okay. Okay. If you do want to talk to us about something that's not on the agenda, feel free to come up and Darcy will give you a sheet so you can sign up. We want to make sure to recognize you and give you an opportunity. Anything on the agenda, you'll be given an opportunity to speak on this evening. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So we'll start with, first thing on the agenda is old business, item A, and it's master plan, adopt downtown master plan. Before we go to staff on this, I would like to just announce for full disclosure that since the last met, things have changed for me as far as ownership. I've acquired additional property in the downtown area. I want to be open and upfront about that and disclose that as far as a conflict of interest. I have reached out to the State Board of Ethics Commission and got advice from them, as well as the School of Government, which the State Ethics Commission advised me to go to Frida at the School of Government and have her to render an opinion on whether there is a conflict of interest. The statement that was made is that this falls under CA-75, which is a board member may be excused from voting if the matter involves the member's own financial interest. She also referenced this falls under another category of the number of people affected, which is very similar to what our council advised us on last time. And that states that this goes of the continuum concept. The event of a board member is the effect on the board member is the same as the effect on a significant number of citizens, then it is fair to allow the individual to vote. I don't feel like that I have a conflict of interest in regards to this, but I did want to make full disclosure because since the last board meeting, this has happened. So I'll ask the council for their feelings on this matter.
I see no conflict.
I said the same thing, and a larger board saw that I had no conflict, so I would agree with the.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'll participate because I don't think there's a conflict on my behalf as well. Now, before we get started and we go to what I'd like to talk about tonight is this is there's a lot of plan. There's a lot of different concepts in this plan. And I understand just how difficult it is to be able to evaluate this entire plan as a whole. So I would like to back to the very beginning, which has been a year and a half to 2 years ago. And I'd like to what started this. Very early on, we realized water and sewer was a dire need of improvement in our downtown. It's going to be the first thing that's going to have to take place in this plan. It's what goes underground. Also, sewer it's almost like a house. When you're building a house, you sometimes get caught up in the aesthetics of the structure. And if you ignore the footer and foundation, you realize that the rest of it's irrelevant, because if it fails, then the rest of it means nothing. So let's talk about water and sewer. And what I'd like to do tonight, if there's no objections, is go to the floor and let's all discuss and let's pull out water and sewer infrastructure improvements in our downtown out of this plan, and let's handle this plan one component at a time. You guys okay with that?
Which components will be handled this evening,
Water and sewer.
even though we advertised the entire plan?
Yep. If you have any objections, please.
I would object. I said we treat the plan as a whole as it was presented.
Okay. Melanie?
I think we have the option at any point in time, in light of new evidence that's come to us in the last couple of days. I think that it is fair for us to be able to go to the plan and pick out the water sewer. Absolutely. That's where we started. That's what the main intent has been for the entire plan. I think that's where we need to go.
Yeah, I think in the reason that I'm heading in this direction, guys, is this is a lot of information. It's a lot of information. There's a lot of concepts in this plan. There's no reason that we can't pull a component and would argue would be the most important component out of this plan. And this will be the first thing that's going to have to take place. If we go in this direction, it will be the first. We're going to have to put water and sewer upgrades in. So that's why I elected to do this, to maybe simplify this. We can put this on the table, the rest of the plan, with a motion afterwards, and just concentrate on the water and sewer and discuss the rest of it in different parts and try to evaluate it and make sure it's the best fit for our community. So I'm going to go to Council. Melody, you're okay with moving forward on water and sewer discussion
I am.
and pulling that out of the plan and just focusing on that component this evening?
I am. I think this is a multifaceted plan, and I think we need to go back to the beginning to do what we intended to do.
This is new to me. If we have a plan for considering all aspects of the plan, I'd love to hear that before I support addressing infrastructure tonight.
Well, it's up to us how we proceed. We obviously advertise the entire plan. It's just that I've continued to hear from the community that this is a lot of information, and that maybe looking at different parts of it and trying to just work on certain parts might be beneficial moving forward.
I agree. I think with the advertisement that was led for an open meeting that seemed rushed, I think we've got a lot of people out here that we're expecting to be heard, but I'll support the consensus of the council.
Okay. Let's talk about water and sewer. So instead of going to Nathan, I want to go to Frankie on this as a staff report and just talk about water and sewer and the need in the downtown.
Okay, so as you can imagine, the down is the oldest portion of the city. So is some of the infrastructure. There's a water line that was put in a couple of decades. There's still some older infrastructure in place, particularly water and sewer. We began discussion about the water and sewer close to 2 years ago, which kind of got this ball rolling. And then the NCDOT released their paving schedule. It sort of got us talking a little faster. In the plan, it's multifaceted. I believe as Councilmember Wiggins alluded to. And a lot of the aspects depend on each other. With the exception of water and sewer, you can break that out to an extent. Because plan, you still have to sewer and service the existing built environment. Without a plan, you still have to address the water and sewer and service the built environment. So that's kind of where we stand with water and sewer. The next step for water and sewer would be some preliminary engineering and then followed by design engineering. That process would probably take 12 to 18 months, just to give you an idea of the timeline. We do have the benefit of some surveying that was conducted by the tool group when they were composing the master plan. So some of that surveying we may be able to use, but additional investigation would have to take place.
Staff questions, guys? Melody?
Let me be clear, Frankie, the engineering part of the plan would take 12 to 18 months, correct? That does not include the time that it would take to get it prepared to go for bid, for us to accept bids and to approve bids, correct?
Possibly have it out to bid in 8. It depends on some complexities. And is there any partnerships, funding? How does your funding shape up? But I would want to give us at least 12 months to get preliminary and design engineering out of the way
Excellent.
per meeting.
What time frame is DOT looking at in starting the paving?
I think initially it was 2021. There's been some changes at DOT. Just in conversation with DOT, they are willing to work with us if we're going to replace infrastructure or dig up one of their streets. Of course, they would not want to have us dig it up, pay for something, or have taxpayers pay for something twice. So we'd certainly coordinate with DOT, and they've given initial indication that they would work with us.
I think that's it for right now. Thank you.
Yeah, back to Frank, the bulk of this section of the plan addresses the needs and then lists several options. Is that your estimation as well?
Mm.
As far as this section of the plan, it's not, there's nothing in actuality, no engineering, no.
No, most of that
phasing.
engineering is underground. Most of what the plan shows is what's above. It's above the foundation, using the analogy that Lee put forth. The water and sewer is what it is. With a plan with various streetscapes, you're still going to have that basic design for the water and sewer. Whether we stripe the asphalt one way or another, you still have that basic infrastructure.
And I'm misplacing the word, but the valley drains, I guess is what they're called. That
That would be a stormwater.
right.
Which while you're digging, take care of those things as well. Stormwater is dependent on asphalt.
Correct.
So
I guess that's my only concern. If you could speak to that, how do we move stormwater under the street without being able to dictate where the drains are on top of the street?
you're only addressing water and sewer, you would not be addressing stormwater.
Correct. Okay. And department heads have looked at this, signed off on this, agree with what's the content of particularly Burke and that department?
It's a consensus that the water and sewer needs to be addressed with or without a plan.
And have they discussed what the substance of what's in this section?
Of this section particularly?
Yeah.
A subset of staff have discussed.
Those seem to be in agreement.
Yes.
What's
I think it's, we've got needs with sewer and water. Water flow protection water and sewer could enhance fire protection.
No more questions.
Frankie, can you speak to the fact about having this prepared in time for DOT to begin their process? For instance, it is fact, we will not wait on the city of Graham. When they get ready to pursue paving, they will pursue paving. They are not here and are not concerned about waiting on us. So the need to go ahead with water and sewer and to have this work done speaks to the urgency of why we're trying to move forward with this part of the plan.
I believe they would prefer we don't kick the can, but if we're actively involved in some planning for improvements, I think their intention is to work with us.
But
I
we're
would hope that
also,
there's a threshold somewhere where they're going to say, well, are you making progress towards these? And
that
are
is
you
correct.
holding me?
If we don't do that, close to being ready or ready, they will bypass us and do what they're going to do. In turn, costing the citizens of Graham hundreds of thousands of dollars in work that we would have to go back and do on the backside after it was already done.
There's some duplication if we're doing the work post DOT resurfacing. Obviously, we would have to cut the asphalt and put more asphalt back. And if we could avoid that, take advantage of an opportunity and time it with DOT, that would be preferred.
So Frankie, you briefly mentioned upon this, but I wanted to emphasize this as well. Talk about fire safety and the importance of water upgrades in the downtown for that, and talk about the program that we actually implemented a while back. We would supply water taps to buildings requesting that, and how we might be able to implement the riser system with the water upgrades and potentially supply water suppression for buildings that may want to tag on to that, saving the city of Graham a lot of money from having to put individual taps in and just put one riser in that could be plugged onto during this.
I can't speak to in great specificity regarding the fire flow capabilities, but as I understand, there have been some issues or worries in the past about the ability to adequately address fire suppression from emergency response. There's also the aspect of we're starting to see folks look at our buildings and want to repurpose them for occupancies that may require sprinkler systems and require water supply for those systems. So that would be a concern sort of on the economic development side is, do you have the ability to serve expanded or more intense uses of your buildings? We do have a program that we initiated, I believe, in June, effective July 1, where we will provide a free tap for those in the #1 fire district who seek to enhance their building through fire suppression.
So talk about pulling out a segment, but being able to move forward on the rest of the plan as council sees fit. Even though this is a continuum plan, it kind of brings in a lot of different facets, but there is that possibility. And talk about the responsibility that DOT would have to provide some stormwater management as well.
So I'm going to give you an administrative opinion on a legislative matter.
Okay.
So this is a legislative matter when it comes to adoption of a master plan. In the absence of a legislative direction, do you not do anything at all, or is it left up to staff professionals or contracted professionals? So my overall opinion is a comprehensive plan is normally the best route to make sure we're not duplicating efforts or we've got an imbalance in our utilities or our land uses so that we create an issue over here and don't intend to. The water and sewer aspect is an aspect that of aspects that you could break out. And because it's going to be largely the same regardless of how we stripe the asphalt and move forward. And I forgot the second half of your question.
Stormwater and how DOT are required to provide some stormwater in regards to.
So part of our downtown area, generally, the area that was part of our master plan, there's a large portion of that is DOT roadways. And There's some stormwater management. There's some limitations downstream. There's some water quality issues. But DOT has sought to improve the stormwater situation in Graham recently.
Yep.
And there's actually an absence of underground stormwater controls for a good bit of downtown, especially Main Street. DOT, we obviously would like to work in concert with them to address stormwater, and generally stormwater is a comprehensive issue. But usually if you have a transportation plan, we'll honor portions of that plan at least. And exact amount they will honor, I'd hate to comment on,
Right.
but
Exactly.
they do look for local plans as part of their long-range planning as well.
Sure. Any other questions for staff before we go to the floor?
No.
All right, guys, so just some of the ground rules. Anyone that wants to speak on this matter tonight will have an opportunity to speak. We are going to have a 3-minute time limit. And we do ask that you speak one time and don't speak twice and don't chime, so that everyone that wants to speak on this matter will be given an opportunity. So with that being said, I'm going to go to the floor for comments. Let's start on the left front and work our way back. So on the front row? No? The next row? Row after that? This is water and sewer, guys. We're talking about water and sewer, so.
So it's evident to me, I'm Barry Coe at
yeah, thank you, Barry.
214 North Marshall, and also business operation on West Elm. It's evident to me after a year operation in business that there are some needs, and I don't want to advertise some of the bad aspects of the water quality that I see, because I don't want to. Well, anyway, that being said, I can see those improvements to be made. I'm concerned, though, that if it's not carefully designed, that it may require some changes be made when the infrastructure is being improved, such as if they cut out along Court Square for those improvements. Will that dictate how the work is done, so to relieve some of the water runoff issues that are already there? I know of one particular interest in front of the verdict of how that water is diverted. And if the city takes on the task of doing those repairs, will it dictate how that area will be resurfaced at that time, which may invoke some of the changes that I would not be in favor of in changing the character of the Court Square? So I have an interest in that, and I'm concerned about that. Where parking is the safest on-street parking we have, because a person can leave a parking space without interfering with traffic inflow. It gives you a safe distance to come out. And if that ended out, it would do away with that, and also do away with the accessibility for unloading with larger trucks, just as an example with the furniture store. So my only concern, I'm all in favor of improving that infrastructure. It's needed, but I'm concerned that there might need to be some wording in this being done, that it would, the scrutiny would be that it wouldn't dictate how that area was put back in the process of doing the repair.
Thank you, Barry. In Barry's row, anyone? Anyone? Go to the row after that.
My name is Rick Irby. I'm a citizen of Graham, North Carolina. Just first visit, so I'm just understanding that it was planned that the master plan for downtown on the agenda that was handed out today,
That is correct.
has been promoted all throughout the county and the city. We're not discussing that at all. Is that correct?
No, we're talking about a part of that, which is the
Okay.
water and sewer upgrades, which is one of the
Just
first.
water and sewer right now,
Yeah.
but nothing with the downtown re-parking or rezoning or going to, nothing.
So water and sewer, we're going to start with that because that's probably the most important, and that's going to be the first part. So
Yeah,
we're going
well,
to
I
try to
noticed a-
handle that part
Right.
first.
I noticed a lot of business owners here, a lot of branch managers of various downtown establishments. Are we going to address their needs to these changes on the master plan after this is done, or this won't happen tonight?
Well, in the future, if this is, depending on what the motion is after this is done, we can bring this back up and bring up different parts of the plan and thoroughly investigate parts of it, make sure it's a proper fit, and maybe try to pull this apart a little bit to make it more digestible, because it is a big plan with a lot of different concepts.
I recognize it's a huge plan. I mean, it's a massive plan, a lot of different moving parts. I just want to make sure that there's not a vote or a execution of a plan without the citizens of Graham being heavily involved, which you can tell tonight. We're heavily involved.
Absolutely.
We moved here 6 years ago for the downtown area.
Sure.
We like it the way it is. I mean, that's the whole point here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. I don't know what my bounds are here, so I'm just asking questions.
Sure, absolutely.
Again, it's kind of a shock not to be able to talk about these things, and we hopefully that the vote doesn't come down without us having a say-so. You mentioned, and again, I don't step out of bounds. You mentioned that you acquired some property and you don't know if it's conflict of interest or not. That's not my decision. But my question that just came to mind was, is the property in the affected area of the growth and process that the changes would make? Don't know if you have to answer that or not. If it is that going to heavily decide your vote?
And it will not. But the
Okay.
answer to your question, and I don't mind answering that, is obviously it is in the area.
Right.
But the decisions that are going to be rendered in the future on the downtown would be something that would affect everyone in the downtown or anyone visiting the downtown. So it's very difficult to put a monetary gain when it affects a large group.
That's right.
It's kind of like lowering taxes. I
Sure.
would benefit, but
Sure.
I have to vote on that, whether I increase or lower, even though I can show direct financial gain because it
Right.
affects many.
That was the last financial gain, which every investor wants that financial gain. We all need a financial gains. Just don't need a financial gain on the mess in Graham downtown. I don't live in downtown, but I dine in downtown, go to church downtown. All the different local establishments. There's about 7 different establishments in the downtown area that we participate in as a family. And the proposed changes would drastically affect that. So just wanted to ask, does every member on the board, Mr. McClure, do you live in Graham? Do? Mr. Kimmy,
I
do you?
do.
Okay.
I do.
So it's just real important.
Excuse me, I'm a board member.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. I am female, but I am a board member.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you live here?
And I do live in the city of Graham.
Great. Well, that's important because, some folks who sit on board may not be, and they may not really appreciate the beauty of the downtown just the way it is. And certainly don't want to see a Pittsboro dynamics come in or a Carborough dynamics come in. This is Graham, very conservative town. We still have the statue. We
Sure.
still have the courthouse. And these are very strong beliefs in this town.
Great.
So just want to make sure.
Thank you.
So I yield.
I want to give you a couple of extra minutes because I did have to answer some of your questions. So thank you. No,
I wrote some stuff down.
and well, now I just provided that to you. You actually, and so we'll move on and give everyone else an opportunity. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So anyone else in that row? No one? We'll go to that row. Anyone there? Nate, come on up.
Nate Perry, 201 South Maple Street, Graham, North Carolina. I just wanted to say I'm particularly addressing this part of the plan tonight. I believe that that's what's holding us up as far as our NCDOT work. It's been obvious to me through friendships and acquaintances that there are problems with the infrastructure downtown, and I support that and believe in the cause and think that it's a good place to start with improvements. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in Nate's row? No? All right, we'll go to the row behind that.
Good evening. My name is Todd Smith. My building's across the street, my office building. I have grown up in Burlington, but worked in Graham for 20 years and owned that building for about 15 years. And in all fairness, I believe, so there's a little bit, I know Mr. Kimball.
Todd, give us an address so we can reach you at.
My address is 110 South Maple Street, Graham.
Okay.
The water situation I know you don't want to address the whole plan, just the water situation. But my question to you, is there any way, have you guys addressed a way to deal with the water situation without some of the other changes that have been talked about, like closing downtown, parks, changing the roadways, and taking people's parking lots? Has there been ways to address those things?
Stormwater management.
Stormwater management or whatever needs to go under the roads? Water and sewer, I take it.
Yeah, water and sewer.
Right.
Yeah, and the water and sewer is simply just that. It's going to be water and sewer under the ground. So, and that's all that's all we'd like to tackle tonight if we could. I'm not sure I understand your question as far as there won't be anything else as far as other than, is there private property where we have some sewer? We do have some sewer and some private
Probably.
property that's running
Yeah.
through buildings.
The way that the plan has been sold in the newspapers, at least, and I haven't read the entire plan, is that there's intention to close portions of the road or at least make them smaller, change the round, put a roundabout in, change the traffic pattern.
Right. Yes.
Make a park down, close off some of the areas down and to take private parking and build parking decks on them or make it into public parking.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm addressing.
Right.
My question to you has, one, is a way to do sewer changes without doing those things?
Yes.
And two, has there been discussion on those without the other modifications that I've just talked about?
It has, and that's a great question, Todd. It has. And there is a way to do water and sewer without addressing those items you just mentioned. The only problem is coming with the stormwater management. Stormwater management, which is controlling, stormwater on top of the ground and underground, it changes what's on the surface. And we know we have a stormwater problem as well, but tonight, talk about the water and sewer, which won't affect anything on top other than disruption.
And so, other gentleman addressed this a little bit. It's my understanding that you do not intend to vote on the entire plan tonight. We're
Correct.
just talking about whether the water and sewer plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can try to maybe take parts of it, go through it thoroughly, investigate it, make sure it's a good fit way, because it is such a big plan.
Well, I know Mr. Manus had talked about water pressure and some of the problems with the water. I mean, have there been other studies, ways other than to tear up all the roads to increase the pressure? Water tower, perhaps. I'm not a hydraulic engineer, but have there been other studies done in ways to do this within the nature of downtown so much?
That would be part of the preliminary engineering process to evaluate options. I do want to disclaimer, while you can pick water and sewer apart, it will largely not affect what's above. I can imagine that if we installed another fire hydrant,
Yeah.
that you may not be able to put a planter there or a parking space or
Yeah.
something like that.
You're right.
There could be some nominal change to the above ground, a riser, for example, if we went down that route. But nominal change to above ground.
Well, and I heard somebody, I think it was Ms. Wiggins, to talk about how much money we might save by not tearing the roads up. However, has there been a study done about how much money might be lost if they change the nature of downtown? For example, Burlington changed the nature of their downtown, and it was a ghost town for many years, quite honestly. See about that to determine whether, what the loss is versus the gains that we might be making.
This is entirely,
So
yeah, those studies, traffic studies, preliminary design studies, all those studies would come subsequent to a conceptual plan.
Frankie, could you let the public know how many times they would meet between now and the time that we actually put out for bid or actually approved any water sewer structure? It will take us 12 to 18 months to do the engineering part of it. And then how many times, can you inform them how many times that is that we will come back to the public to present facts? Not a conceptual plan, but a facts.
Hang in there, Todd.
So
Sure.
you're going to get facts, but they're not going to be here. So some of the answer, because again, this is just a conceptual plan. It is not intended to be factual. All we're doing is going underground. Have we done studies? That's what's getting ready to happen. We're getting ready to try to move forward so that we can get those studies done.
I don't want to address the wrong person, but I guess that leads to the final question. If you implement this plan, we have to go down this path, or is it modifiable later? In other words,
Again, it is a conceptual plan, which is a big picture. A master plan, site plan is specific with detail. This is a pretty picture. Okay, so all the questions that you're asking right now can't be answered until we start to go down that road. And in every juncture, the public will be in, you'll get an opportunity to speak about, engineers talk about.
But it's not the facts that I'm asking about. The question is, if we implement this plan, if you implement this plan, is it going to put us on a track where
Are
we
you
are?
talking about a total plan?
The master plan, the plan that was on the agenda, the plan that,
We're not talking about that tonight. We're talking strictly water sewer.
okay.
Okay.
Well, just for
That-
the water and sewer, could we amend it if you pass it?
But I'm sorry, you're not listening.
No,
That's exactly what I just said.
Well,
Every opportunity.
I don't know if you understand the amount of disgust that has been promulgated
do.
by this plan.
I do,
And I
and
worry-
most of what you
worry
said
strongly.
was just incorrect. So
Hold on.
let me go back to that. Your time is actually up.
Yeah, well,
So-
hold on. We answered some questions for Todd. Just hang tight, Todd.
Sure.
All right, let's just all catch our breath. Frankie?
So this, the concept, the 30, 40, 50,000 foot view, as you and on water and sewer preliminary design, engineering design, permitting, letting of contracts, and somewhere in the middle, there's budgeting processes, which would probably be the next legislative process for our council, would be to appropriate funds. Those are either done on a annual basis with the annual budget, which requires a public hearing, or they're done on project budgets, which do have to be adopted in an open session. Those are legislative acts. There'll be several opportunities for various aspects of this plan or any other plan to come back to the legislative body for various approvals. Sometimes it could be approvals to, for financing or grant other projects. We just authorized a contract for a pump station, and it took us probably 2 years to go from securing the funding to authorizing the contract. And then between, there were resolutions, there were project budgets approved, and all those are done on the legislative level. And any and everyone could come to those meetings and
So if I understand what you're saying, that means that even though this is the conceptual plan, like Ms. Wiggins said, at any point you could change the board could change the point
it's,
by not funding it or by making a different decision.
Correct,
yeah,
yes. Yeah,
it's a legislative
yeah,
act.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Good question. Thank you, Todd.
That's my
Okay.
questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in Todd's row? Okay. Come on up.
Ben Barnhill, 404 Forest Drive, Graham, North Carolina. Just a couple of quick questions. When we decide, or when the city of Graham decides to engineering study, when that's communicated to the state, does up the clock with them cutting the paving until we get the water and sewer done?
That's a great question, and it doesn't stop it, but it gives them consideration knowing that we're moving forward.
We would certainly coordinate with them to let them know that it's in process.
Yeah.
And from the time that we get the engineering assessment done until the time, and then we get a purchase order, and then the work is done, is there an estimate on how long that will take?
Could be years.
Yeah.
So again, the question is there, does the state take all that into consideration?
We would coordinate with them and we can come up with, generally when in the preliminary engineering, we come up with a time frame.
So we got 12 to 18 months before the state's going to really do anything.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that, oh, sure, come on up, Paul.
Paul Harden, 16 Northeast Court Square. So first of all, I'd like to say, I think this is a good idea. Obviously, people are confused. So to break it down like this, I think it's great. Yeah, I know we don't need the master plan to do this. We're just, and then we're not talking about the master plan overall, and nobody's voting on a master plan tonight. The water and sewer really do need to be took care of. I support you 100%. 100%. Look, see what little work we have done down here on Court Square, you know, on this side of the courthouse where they went in there and did that pipe.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not knocking anybody. I don't do that kind of work, but that work right there took a little while and it's pretty rough right there. If anybody knows, and we got that dip coming around the courthouse. Yeah, we really need to get this stuff done before the state comes in here and does what they need to do to smooth it out. One thing on that road is I can stand in front of my bake and see that the road is actually higher than the sidewalk. Although surely that causes a problem. It's just, you know, but we got to understand too that, you know, a lot of things has happened down at the coast. The state's not going to be probably in a big hurry to get here. They want to get in here and do their job, but even they have a budget they have to go by and a time frame. And if something hits the coast down there, of course, the state's going to take care of those people before they come through Graham. So I'm just saying, I know it needs to be took care of. I'd like to see it get to a timely manner, and I really appreciate y'all going through this like you all are exactly what we're doing.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
So let's see, anyone else there in Paul's row? Come on up. Hello, Paul.
Paul Keller, 410 Stonehenge Drive, Graham. I'm a resident of Graham. I'm also a business owner of Graham. I also support what's going on here as far as the water, the sewer. It makes sense, I think, to separate that. I don't think anyone here tonight is against. But what I want to do is to encourage all of us here to consider somehow we need to come together on a plan, and let's do this once. Because as a business owner, I don't want to inconvenience my customers. I don't think any other business owner wants to do that. I don't think we want to tear things up and then come back and tear them up again. I'd love for us to come together, have some sort of a consensus. But if all we're going to do tonight is do water and sewer, if we can quickly get through this, can we move on to other plans, or is that in the cards?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so then is there going to be a second round of questions if we?
Absolutely, absolutely, Paul, depending on the direction the council takes after this, as far as a vote, can see that certainly being investigated as parts of the plan in the future.
So if we keep our questions short, we might be able to move to other aspects besides water and sewer, possibly.
Yeah, possibly in future meetings.
One other thing about infrastructure, I don't know if any of you have a business downtown. When we have power outages, we just had one the other day. Avalon Acres was knocked out. The post office was knocked out, but not the funeral home. And when we had power outages downtown before, maybe the Verdict would have power, or the Verdict wouldn't have power. Or I don't think this, but it's just all interspersed. Is that going to be addressed too when we start tearing streets up? Because we got to really fix this power issue too. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. So anyone else in Paul's row? No, we'll go to the row behind that. Come on up here, Scott.
Scott Pickard, 101 Southwood Court. I just want to reiterate what I said last month. That you have to be extremely careful in the engineering firm you pick. Some will try to, if you've got a bunch of trees, they'll try to calculate that into what you calculate the discharge, the ingress, and how a stormwater. So they're careful that you do not count the trees as part of your removal on the influent end. However, on the effluent end, that's where you got to do all your capturing. You want to use the trees for a safety factor. You don't want to use it in your calculation. So you got to have units that are big enough to capture all that and not count trees as part of your calculations for egress and egress going in and coming out, just like a septic tank or a grease trap. It's going to catch it. It's going to release it. But if you let it count where you're putting in trees and some of it's seeping in the ground, in the impervious surface, and you got trees are going to soak it in obviously better than asphalt. But if you do that and you count what's doing for you, then when you have a super big rain And for Graham, that's probably about an inch now.
Mm-hmm.
2 inches, you're, okay. So if you count the trees in your first, you're gonna be in a heap big trouble if you put those kind of traps in, even after you put them in and spend all that money. And I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay twice and you dig them out and build it in again. You understand what I'm saying? So that being the case, I just caution you, and I realize that you all got a tough job to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Anyone else in that row? Behind that?
Ronnie Idle, Turson Graham. I'm born and raised, I'm 58 years old. I know I don't look it, but lived here all my life. I got a friend that's in Mount Airy, and he calls it Mayberry. I say I live in Mayberry too. So I'm glad to see you're at least addressing one part of tonight. We shouldn't be here without a full council. Okay? To me, I don't know your hearts. I don't know you, but it seems almost like something, an appearance of evil. I'm not saying that, but you know, here before even vote was taken.
I do too.
But I guess I don't see how we can be taking a vote without full council. But anyway, as far as water and sewer, I guess I had 7 points down, so you killed 6 of them. I'd say yes, fix the infrastructure if it needs it. If it's broken, fix it. If it's not, like the downtown area, we're not talking about that, I know. Don't fix what ain't broke. I didn't realize, I'm not an engineer, obviously. I assume water, sewer, and stormwater was all one package.
Ideally, you're digging one time.
Will we be taking estimates on the job that way?
You can break water, but it's going to be tough to break out stormwater because stormwater depends on what's above ground and the design and where it's draining to, what areas are impervious, what are not. So it would be harder to break out stormwater. That's where you need a more comprehensive plan.
And getting back to your concern, it could be a future vote with the
So
full
it's not
council.
included. Water, sewer is one thing, stormwater is the second thing.
And so
We're not overlapping in cost.
To break out stormwater. I suppose you could, but there are things that the built environment, what's above ground affects what's going to be below ground. And if there's thought of changing or shifting, the possibility, if you don't know what that change is going to be, how can you design for what's below ground? So it's dependent on what's above ground, more so than the water and sewer. The water and sewer, we know, so the buildings, it's largely built out. We know how many floors there are, maximum capacities, those can be calculated. Because we're serving it now, we have to serve it.
Someone mixing forward, we could be digging back up to fix stormwater.
It's possible, yes. I'll have to also
All right,
understand that.
cost, we don't know until you do the engineering, not even a ballpark.
And the one thing that we're talking about tonight,
Graham,
that we're not talking about tonight
Right.
is the cost.
Right.
And I thank the council for having confidence in me year in and year out to formulate budgets and adopt plans, but you also at some point have to do an assessment on what you can afford.
Exactly.
And we have some estimates, but there's going to be prices are increasing daily.
In my business, we say you may have a filet mignon appetite with a hot dog budget. So, well, you are elected officials and you were just do your job, and I appreciate that. But decisions you make and the planning board makes will be long lasting after you're gone. And that's good or bad. And I hope that does weigh heavily in your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Anyone else on that row? No one on that row. How about on the back? Come on up.
Jay Martin, 405 Ivy Road here in Graham. Appreciate y'all's work. It's tough. Couple of things on the water and sewer. Y'all have done work previously. I say you're in charge of it. And we don't require these meetings because it's needed. Not a whole lot of choice on some of that. But, and that's going to be the case here. Some things are going to need to be done. I think the concern will be is if Project A leans into changing things and supporting towards Project B or C. And I think anybody's concern is that water and sewer, water runoff, go for it. It's needed. And don't let that tie into the end. And they're probably okay with that. We know we need it. The only other thing I want to let you know is, I have a road closed where I work in Raleigh. It's been closed for about 5 months. I spoke with the gentleman that's in charge of the project, and he's been told to get off of it. No planning, unexpected. The road caved in and so forth. So it's been shut down for that long. They've been told to get off of it. There wasn't a budget. The state just passed one the other day. And, that's a closed road. Can assure everyone the state's not going to be here too soon doing this work because, and even with the budget passed, this road still is not on the agenda to be getting fixed. They've been told to get off of it. It's lower priority. So if, our roads aren't that bad and aren't closed. I just want you to be aware of it. Like I said, I've spoke with the gentleman in Raleigh that's in charge of it, and he clearly has been told to stay off of it for now, even from the planning. And again, I'm talking about a road that's collapsed. It's going to take engineering. There's water and sewer under it. And we're nothing like that in the sense of that we can get on the state's priority. But I do appreciate your work. I for your decisions and at least giving us a chance. I will reiterate to the last one. I do think that we should try and have a full here in doing a vote like that. But thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Jay. So anyone else in the back? Standing outside the door there, anybody? No, then I'm going to come back up to the front right. Anyone on the front right up? Come on up.
Gary Stewart, Restore Aerial Photography, 639 Dixon Road in Graham. As a gentleman's a little more clear on how the road buildings are currently. Is that how I understand it? How it runs off and what have
Depends
you?
on topography.
Okay. Now, would the NCDOT engineers work with the engineers with the storm water and drain off? Would they work in collaboration?
Good question.
Talking about water and sewer tonight. If we're doing water and sewer work within the NCDOT right of ways, we're required to go through a permitting process they have. It's called an encroachment process. We do those every day. Seems like every day, but it's a recurring thing for us to work with NCDOT on those things. Of course, we would share the plans and would want to coordinate with them for more than one reason. Obviously, talk about the research, just working in the right of ways. Stormwater is a little more complex. There's a lack of stormwater controls in the downtowns, a lot of surface sheet drainage. Our downtown actually flows into 3 different sub-watersheds. 2 of those are impaired. 2 are impaired. One is insufficient. More complex matter, and there's actually, you may say, 2 separate systems because you're going to have a system that DOT will use to drain water from their roadways and pass it on, and then there's going to be cities' roadways, and we have to keep those in mind too. So we have an interest in our streets and our stormwater infrastructure. DOT has an interest in theirs, but ideally you would look at that on a more comprehensive. I think that's what you're asking.
It is.
Would you look at it on a comprehensive level? Ideally, yeah.
Work with, which I think was your biggest question for a certain degree, but they would realize in the future conversations we may have about this, and that they would work with us, and they are responsible for some, and they would honor hopefully anything that we felt was necessary as well to take care of our downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the first row there. How are you?
Fred Sternberg, 38 Southwest Court Square, 105 South Main Street. I'm getting a mixed message. Maybe I just missed it, but it's my understanding from what you all are saying now that we're just dealing with water and sewer at this point, and we're not going to do the adopting the master plan. Is that correct?
At this meeting tonight, we would like to try to start taking parts of it. And the first and most important part is the water and sewer, and that's what we would like to try to tackle tonight.
Okay, can we limit this meeting to that issue?
Sure.
Okay.
And that's the hope, but any concerns, obviously
And-
try to address as well.
Then I was wondering, what's the procedure after this as far as the rest of the, in quotes, master plan?
In the future, as this came back up, parts of the plan and discuss it, but it's up, move forward with that.
Okay, and it'd be in parts, overall thing?
It would be one to tackle that in the future.
'Cause the reason I'm asking that is I wasn't aware of the April or the July meetings until I saw the first notice I got that there was going to be a meeting about adopting the master plan. So I'm assuming, and now the city's been really good about notifying me since I got on the list.
Good.
So I'm aware now, but I wasn't aware at all that all this was going on. And as I've told you before, got them and it hasn't fallen down yet. So I'm concerned about it. And I want to participate in this.
Sure. I'm glad we got you on the list now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in Fred's Row?
Williams, 602 Ward Street. Lee and Frank, I thank you for breaking this down. I think it's a smart idea. Putting the water and sewer, letting the contract for that has no bearing on the master plan. It has to go in a certain way. The sooner you can let a contract for water and sewer improvements, I think you're better off. And it's a complicated thing. And he said, like Frankie said, it's easily take a year to get a design and a plan that'll work with the council and city staff more opportunity to modify master plan.
Absolutely.
And I think you're going in the right direction by doing that if you can limit to tonight for the water and sewer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George Adams, Marshall Street in Graham. 211. Question is pretty simple. The water and sewer, is that just on Main Street and Elm Street? Is that all?
Again, a preliminary engineering study would.
How many streets
investigate.
are my question?
There's, sewer could go down several streets depending on how it flows, and we'd have to also understand what's downstream for a sewer.
So you're not going to know till the engineers get involved?
I would feel better commenting upon the engineers getting involved. But you have to understand that we've got, it faces this street, but their utilities may go back to Maple Street or Marshall or.
Ballpark idea of how much that would cost to do the water and sewer?
It's going to be millions.
Millions.
Yeah.
We figured that. That's about all I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in that row? I'll go to the row after that.
To North Main Street, had business and live on Hanford Road. A couple things, just real quick. I wasn't planning on speaking. Talking about saving money, tearing up the asphalt, concrete, whatever one time. Frankie, you were saying a minute ago, we're going to break this out. Stormwater is going to be its own project. Stormwater and sewer is going to be its own project. Excuse me.
Make sure I was
Stormwater separate, sewer and water would be another project.
of the aspects of the sewer, you could break out.
Right.
Anything else, I would be at because it intertwines.
So is
What
that
happens
the,
here affects something over here.
is that the intent of this conversation this evening, is talking about breaking up this plan? Whether we're going to call it a conceptual plan, whether we're going to call it a master plan, whatever it is, are we breaking now at this point, we're going to do this project, this project, this project. And if water and sewer are the predominant problems that we're dealing with, are we just going to put to bed this idea that we're going to save money if we do it right now? Yeah, that's the thing that concerns me. See, I'm of the mind to do something downtown because I'd like to see improvements. But I'm also of the mind that it doesn't make any sense to push it forward in 12 to 18 months just to do one thing if we're saying, well, stormwater is not going to get done because we can't pull it off. Is that?
No, that's a reasonable question, Adam. In future meetings, we have that option to explore different components of the plan and maybe take sections of the city and talk about them and as to what direction we move.
Right.
And hopefully we get members back who want to be involved as well. And we make decisions as a group and see how we can handle this moving forward.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, we talk about, you know, it came to this for the downtown master plan. We're calling it a master plan. We're calling it the 50,000 foot view, but we're also saying we're going to look at the stuff that's 10 feet down. So we got to figure out what we're doing and what we're going to call it, because people are scared and upset and all that stuff and worried about everything that's going on. But then I guess the last thing that I'm still confused about that we're doing, maybe I've just missed it. Something like this. And when that vote happens, what is a quorum for the Graham City Council?
You're looking at a minimum quorum right now.
So a 2-to-1 vote could override everything. And I say this as a person who, I lived in the county. The city of Burlington decided they're going to decide of me. They all came out and played pretty and told me how great this is going to be. And then you thought they were on your side and then they stabbed me in the back. And so that's, 2-to-1 scares me. You know, 3-to-2, 4-to-1, whatever, that's fine. But that doesn't look good on my end.
Sure.
And you know, we've all had our discussions together and want to do something, but we got to do it the right way and the way that doesn't have any shadows hanging over it. You know?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So in Adams Row, no one? Adam? That's Mickey's Row. Anybody in Mickey's Row? Jeanette, anybody there in your row? Come on up. I know we jumped a little bit, and I'll come back to Elaine, your row. Okay.
My name is Wendy Terrell, and I'm at 17 Southeast Court Square, Suite 200 and 202. I also live in Graham, actually out in the county. So I just want to make sure that I understand something. I'm not very knowledgeable in, they're talking about if the difference between the stormwater and the sewer and water.
Okay, so you have separate systems. In some larger cities, they're combined, but in Graham, they're two different systems. So your wastewater system is comprised of a collection system, which are your lines that connect to houses and businesses. It collects the wastewater, bays it to a system, a collection system that may have pumps. Eventually, it wants a treatment plant, whether it's ours or a contract plant. And the water is processed both biologically and even chemically, some now, is released back into the environment. So that's a sewer system. That's usually your processed waste, your domestic waste, your toilet flushes, your sink drains, things like that. Your stormwater system handles the water that falls from the sky. And that is a system that, unlike the wastewater system, we usually call that discharge a point source discharge. It's our plant into the river at one single point. The storm sewer system is generally a non-point source of discharge is the place. Whatever's on the road, the water picks it up and it drains into our streams, creeks, eventually the river, and on down to Jordan Lake, and eventually to the ocean.
So what we're talking about tonight, does that include the stormwater?
It does not.
It does not. Okay. So my only other question then is, right now, my understanding is that the stormwater and the sewer are tied together.
No.
They're not separate.
They are separate.
They are separate. underground.
Yes. In
Right
fact,
now.
we have two different permits. We have a wastewater permit collection system, and then we have a NPDES stormwater permit. And one of the aspects, just for your information, is a good housekeeping aspect, which we are supposed to make an effort to do things to handle storm when you're doing a comprehensive effort to maintain good housekeeping. And that is why plans tend to address stormwater.
Right.
It-
The reason I'm asking, I apologize if I interrupted you, is I just want to make sure I understand the stormwater of ground. So the water and sewage is not affecting what is above ground. Is that correct?
It is our estimation that you can break out the water and sewer to a much greater extent than you can break out many other aspects of this plan that are so dependent on what you do over here affects something over here. The more asphalt you have, the more runoff you're going to have.
Mhm.
Less asphalt, the less runoff. Are you going to do anything in between to detain water or treat it? And so with stormwater, there's a quantity issue with stormwater. There's also a quality issue. And most people think, when they think stormwater, they think of quantity, versus quality. Our downtown drains into 3 different, what I'll call subwatersheds, and 2 of those are impaired, they're impaired for water quality. And so that's an aspect we have to keep in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
So let's go back to Jan Lane Road. Do anyone in that row? No? Okay, we'll go to Wendy's Row. Anybody else in Wendy's Row? How about behind Wendy's Row? No one there? All right, we'll jump to the next row after that. Anyone there? Come on up.
I am Leslie Brown, 425 Bank Street in Graham. I'm here representing the Tallies tonight. They're out of business, out of town on business. They tried to change their plans, but could not at last minute. But they did think that this was a dead issue from the last time we had a meeting with the vote that y'all had. And they really just want to know if we are addressing the the sewer and the water. Do you have any maps about the infrastructure already and the proposed changes to that? And where is the cost and how much is it going to cost the town? And where's this money going to come from? Do we have any idea?
It comes from the same place all the money comes from when there's dire needs, and this will actually, part of this will come from our water and sewer fund.
Okay.
And then part of it will come from the general fund.
Okay.
Yep.
And so do we actually have a map changes that y'all are proposing water and sewer already?
We don't have the map yet.
That would come with engineering.
Yeah.
We do have a map of our distribution system and
Yeah.
collection system,
Okay.
but that's a map for reference. That's not a map for construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in that row?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and other council members. My main concern, I'm Judy Ward, I live
Hi,
at
Ms. Ward.
483 West Moore Street. My main concern is we've got 3 council members here. Not, if this is important, as important that y'all say it is, then we need more than 3 council members to vote on this, not just 3 council members. And that concerns me a great deal. The other thing is, and I know I don't have a vote, Lee, but I feel like that it is not fair for you to be voting on something that you could profit from. But you don't think that's a problem, but my personal opinion, it is. And I will tell you that DOT is not who's pushing y'all to take a vote on anything tonight, because I talked with them this afternoon. And the engineer down there says to me, what we have done as far as paving is from Bethany Church to Greensboro Chapel Hill Road has, everything's ready to go. We're taking bids. And I said, what have you done from the courthouse to Bethany? And they said, nothing. They said, we haven't done anything at all. It hasn't been approved. And I said, is there an urgent need? And he said, well, I can't say there isn't an urgent need, but he said, I can't tell you that we do a 5-year plan. So when we do a 5-year plan, there's no telling where you'll fall in that 5 years.
Sure.
So we need to think long and hard. I think we did our mayor an injustice by him not being here, and he's been here for all the other meetings. And it'll be out forever. But I think you need to reconsider voting anything tonight. I don't think it's necessary. And Councilman Wiggins, I will tell you, when you questioned a while ago about what they were questioning, we're looking at this board that says adopt downtown master plan is what it says. And that's the reason they can. So you gotta look at the overall, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Thank you. All right, so anyone else in back right? Anyone? Anyone else want to speak? All right. If no one wants to speak, then I'll go to the question. And I'll entertain a motion.
I've got discussion.
Okay.
So I need specificity. What are we talking about? Because if you take stormwater out of the stormwater and utilities section, I see it distilled down to one paragraph. Is that what we're voting on?
It's actually mentioned in the plan several times about the need for water and sewer. So we're actually just voting on the water and sewer, which is what started the whole conversation. So just the water and sewer.
Includes things about stormwater. We're voting on the sentences that include things about water and sewer.
Just water and sewer. Exactly. Not as it ties together and implemented throughout the entire program, the entire plan, but just the water and sewer itself.
There's one paragraph that jokes about water and sewer. And then the rest of the section, if I'm looking correctly, it's 66 through 71.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is interweaved.
Yeah. And that's correct. So we're just talking about the water and sewer. And that one paragraph is about as much interest as most people have in water and sewer. And that just says there's a desperate need for upgrade. So that's what we're going to discuss.
I'll be curious to hear the motion.
Okay. I will entertain a motion, and I will make a motion that we approve water and sewer, and that we take the remaining part of the plan and table it for now. I will ask for a second.
Second.
I'll go to discussion. I don't, but I think it's been enough said already. So any discussion? No. Okay. Then I'll go to a vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. It passes. Thanks to everyone who came out in regards to this, and please stay tuned. In the future, there will be more part decides to move forward on it. It is on the table, so it could be brought up at future meetings for discussion. And thanks for all the input and for everyone coming out. So we will, I tell you what, guys, why don't we take about 2 minutes and just take a quick break? Anyone that wants to leave or not interested in staying, but let's take a 2-minute break. And it's actually to reference in the scope of work, it's in the scope. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, there it is, scope and the purpose.
We're being filmed though.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Whereas what? Anything. Nothing solid at this point. Hey, thank you for your comments. Thank you.
They break a screw.
Absolutely.
There's nothing. That's why there is that conversation that do, because we also know we have upgrades. So there is some in these cities, which isn't money available there. The city has different options that it can go to fund balance, it can go to general funds, it can go to grants, or it can go to we've got 3 or 4 different options depending on what it costs. What we still need. We'll be looking at all of it.
And it'll be all phased. We'll look all over.
You look like you're feeling. Yes, it is. And I want you're here to turn into Japanese.
Hold on, I'm coming back.
Jan, how are you?
No, I haven't. But I mean, people would say, hey, I still bumper cover of course. Matter of fact, that's how I. But I hear you.
But you know that I appreciate all the work you did 100 years ago on this access. It was unbelievable. My son goes, he goes. They just,
Tell me.
you just put your boat in, take it out. I mean, I just think that cutoff is really started.
I appreciate that. It's great to see it continue.
Yeah, Brian Baker did a good job.
If there's a coordinator, I'll tell you, when he was actually in charge, when we got most of it. And then he sent over. Then it was go to maintenance. Oriented about getting filled in what they've got, and how the maintenance is going. So, this one part is great seeing, I haven't seen pretty like,
Yeah.
when we're gonna get the rest of the I think that's my thing.
Dean Ray,
Let's
you know,
finish. Yeah,
he
well,
told me
Aaron,
the other day, he was telling me that at first, get out, you. I don't know. Anyway, I know that probably all the different mountains went over the road and did everything. But now, what he's doing where his son, Burlington, is working. They it's all. Now, he's got their first
We didn't go over the agenda.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, anytime. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to order again. Get it to settle down. All right, everyone, we're going to bring this meeting back to order. All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so let's go on to the next item on the agenda, which is old business as well, and this is B, which will be an ordinance amendment to Chapter 18. Go to Nathan on this one. I'm sorry, Aaron.
Yes, sir. Last, I proposed an ordinance change to update our existing ordinance, which relates to digging, tunneling within the sidewalk and street. Our current ordinance was an old model ordinance that our public works utility departments felt was insufficient for the current state of what they dealt with on a day-to-day basis, especially with our new subdivisions, developments going in, a lot of conflicts happening with utility lines as well as telecommunication lines. With that being said, staff looked to jurisdictions for model ordinances that would be applicable for what we're trying to do. And what was presented to you last month were model ordinance that many cities within the state, including Raleigh, Fayetteville, Roseville, Fuqua, a lot of states, a lot of cities within the state, as well as other states within the United States, have adopted as a model ordinance to go forward with. Council did request that staff go back, review the language to see if there are any other ways to say certain things as to the digging within the right-of-way space. I reached out to Raleigh as well as Fuqua to discuss with them when it was mailboxes and salt services. Were these things that you exempted whenever you had your review? They told me no, that's something that they really wanted to have their staff review. They have city engineers on staff, so this does go through a process that it does allow them to review these items as they come through. So staff does recommend keeping the language as is. However, any guidance on language or phrasing that council may have, like us to look into, we would certainly put it into the ordinance with guidance from our attorneys.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Aaron. Griffin, questions for staff?
I'm anxious to hear Councilman Kimry's questions answered from the last meeting, but it all seems to me of real was the biggest concern to, I guess, was there any conversation about omitting just that word?
Well, there are only so many ways you can say certain things.
Right. But what about like a certain depth or for a mailbox or?
And that still doesn't address, certain depths may still
interfere.
Conflict. Yeah. So it'd be difficult to go in that manner. I haven't put a mailbox in a long time, but I imagine that you could potentially, PSA, you should call 811 if you did. But even for a mailbox or any decorative yard furnishings, anything that you do, we want those items to be looked at before you just go out and throw it out there in the right of way.
Yep. Oh, that's good.
Okay, Melanie?
So Aaron, just to clarify, what you're saying is that what you're proposing is the revised language, correct? When you said original language, you're saying the proposed
Well, it's
Proposed
it's
is
the
what
language
you're-
from the last meeting,
Correct.
but
It was proposed.
it's the new model ordinance that
Right.
cities have adopted.
What was proposed was the new model
Correct.
that the state is using and other cities are using because it gains value as a whole. Is that correct?
Well, it includes areas beyond your sidewalks and streets where before the model ordinance pertained mainly within the any openings within the sidewalk or street. Now you're having the areas that run along those spaces.
Right. And then I think before we spoke to, we've had the pleasure of speaking with Burke, the Director of Public Works, who spoke mainly about, we keep going back to the mailbox, and the mailbox is one of the issues that I think that they're most concerned with that happens, that they're not being called about, that they definitely want to be called about.
Yes, I had the opportunity to
And
speak
there are
with Bert.
several of
Yes.
those evidently that have taken place where we've had to replace, or
You-
look in or fix.
Right, you can see a utility box within the right of way space and right beside it is a mailbox. So the opportunity of conflict is there.
Thank you.
So Aaron, it seems to me that the biggest difference other than labeling all the different aspects of what are in public space is the addition of actual public space.
Right.
What was currently is that if you open up or you disturb a sidewalk or a street, then it's required that you get a permit. Now we're saying it's required if you go through a sidewalk or open up a street, or you dig a hole or do anything in the right of way or public space.
That's correct.
Is it possible that we could look at language that just says that and leave all the other descriptive language out as far as holes and that way we, as anything that happens, which would be excavation or opening a public space, roadway or
Being a non-attorney, I would say yes. I would probably have to turn to our attorney for the official wording on that.
That one more time.
yeah, just a blanket that says public space, any excavation or opening of the streets, sidewalk, or public space right away. The reason is that moving forward in the future, that future administrations could look at that term whole and be very selective to make anyone that actually drops a shovel in the dirt come in and get a permit in that right of way in the public space. If they're looking at the descriptive language, then they're saying, well, it says a whole. That means anything's got to happen. But if there's discretion used, which just says it's in the public space, come in and talk to us and we'll use discretion and we'll let it go. And you don't have to have a permit if you're just putting a shovel in the ground, basically.
And that was one of the cautions I received from one of the cities I reached out to. We didn't want to take the discretion and flexibility away from staff whenever an individual want to work in that space. So, obviously I would rather have the flexibility stay with staff as much as possible.
Yeah, I would too, because this gives, in the future, generations or administrations can look at this and go, oh no, it says a whole, so that means anything, you got to come in and get a permit. I would like to at least have discretion to say, this is reasonable and doesn't need to come and get a permit. Go ahead and do what you need to do in the public right of way. If you do what you tell me you're going to do and have that discretion available. Is that possible? Okay. All right, thank you. So let's go to the floor. Anyone like to comment on this matter from the floor? Nothing about public right of way. No comments, no questions? Okay. I'll come back to council and ask for a motion or discussion.
Will do you want to see the language next time? Or are you suggesting specific language this time?
I think just public right of way or actually public space. And I've actually got some language here that I could put in a motion, but I would just like to see a public space. That would be just the other term other than sidewalk, road, public space. And not be just different reasons and allow staff to be reasonable in what they would deem as needing a permit.
So what's the easiest way to see the change, in the existing language or proposed?
In the proposed. I've got everything marked out in the red except the excavation and everything else, our public space is still valid. So it just says public space, any excavation or opening, if that's satisfactory.
Or
Again, Lee.
Yeah, it would be, no person shall make any excavation or opening in any street, sidewalk, or public space unless a written permission therefore has been issued by the city authority of the city manager, et cetera, after that. That would just eliminate all the descriptive language and allow staff to make a reasonable decision.
Are we good with that, Aaron?
I'd love you guys to weigh in.
That sounds fine.
Nathan?
It says exactly what we want.
Will that accomplish what we're looking for?
This one's for the Public Works Director.
Okay.
But I think
Seems like
it's
one.
broad enough that we've given them the discretion. And the thing that we wanted most to do was err on the side of caution. Excellent.
I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Okay. Were you able to pick that up as far as okay, you've got that revised language?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Is that a motion, sir?
It will be a motion in just a minute. So I move to approve the ordinance amendment to Chapter 18, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, Article 4, amendment of the Code of Ordinance to amend the requirements and permitting process for excavation in the city right-of-way with the amended language discussed and stated here in the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, I'll go over and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, so the next item on the agenda tonight is number 2. That's from citizens. And I believe we have a request from Janae Ferrara to amend the fee for temporary outdoor sales from $25 to nothing for food trucks on private property. And I guess, Nathan, because you're at the top of the letterhead on this one.
Yes, sir. This is a request from Janae Ferrar to amend the fee for the temporary outdoor sales for food trucks only or temporary outdoor sales on private property. Janae has had 12 temporary outdoor sale events on her property. There were a half dozen other events splattered around the city. And the original motion that was passed by City Council included a $25 fee, which Janae has requested to be removed. As it's not in the fee structure, fee schedule, it may be beneficial to put it in there such that if the future council wanted to amend it, they could do so through that manner. If it's passed tonight, one way or the other, we could put it before you guys for the 2019-2020 fee schedule.
Melody, questions for staff?
Yeah, so my understanding, Nathan, is that, our main issue with all of this originally was we have to separate the private property versus public property. And first of all, secondly, that we are talking about what the issue was and charges was the fact that any runoff that these food trucks may have, that they could actually make their way into our water sewer drains. And that was the issue of how we clean it up. There was a fee involved to assist us in the cleaning that process up. Am I correct? All right, thank you. So the difference between having something on a public and private, we require insurance from the public events that have it and the insurance insurance when they have those events, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So private owners are required to have insurance. This type of insurance that they would have would actually cover that to do something, and we had work in cleanup, that they would be responsible solely for doing that cleanup. And that would come from their own private insurance, correct?
It would depend. If I had an event on my property and had runoff from my property into the city stormwater system that caused problems, it would certainly fall back on me to fix that issue. It would be a little murkier if the city council gave permission for me to have the same event on Main Street and the same event happened, because it would not have been clear that that was me or the person that came before or after me. But in this circumstance, it would be the private property owner that would be liable for whatever damages they caused.
Right. And part of that fee structure, when we discussed it at the beginning, had something to do with that. Is that correct? Thank you. Is it possible for the applicant at this point, or do you want to go ahead and do staff first?
Let's go ahead and do staff first, if that's okay. Yeah, Griffin, go ahead.
Janae's letter says $50 and our agenda says $25. Is the current fee structure 50 or 25?
Draft that was put before council 2-3 years ago, 50. In the motion that was council, that number was moved to 25. The city was charging 50. It came to our attention, all the monies have since been refunded to everyone who had a temporary outdoor sale in the interim, including, as Janae had 12 of them, she was given a check for half of 12 times $50, so $300.
So as you stated earlier, the fee is not in the code of ordinances, but explain to me what $25 gets Janae or the food truck or anybody else for that matter when that one-time fee is paid. That's a one day with, I know there's restrictions as to how often that can appear, but
it's
or is that for that food truck for the whole 12 months?
I would interpret it as the same.
But the limitations in the code of ordinances about frequency and about hours of operation and things, they have to adhere to that $25. She only pays $25 or a property owner per food truck for the calendar year or 12 months.
Yes, regardless of what permit exists, staff couldn't approve something that was otherwise illegal by the city of.
Say that again.
And do that.
Okay.
So Nathan, describe to me what the possibility or the option of looking, because we had a long discussion about this at the previous time that we made this decision to look at all temporary outdoor sales with eliminating any fee for temporary outdoor sales and making it a fair across the board. Talk to me about that a little.
So yard sales currently don't require any permitting. They can just happen whenever. And there are some restrictions on, I believe, like the time of day, and you can't block traffic with garage sales. But they didn't have any restrictions about paying a fee to the city or those sorts of things. The one piece that I think is slightly different from garage and yard sales for this one is that the temporary outdoor sales does spell out that you can't have a use that's not permitted in that zone anyway.
Right.
So for example, in Avalon Acres, you couldn't open up a hat shop and sell on your driveway. That would not be allowed in that R12 zoning and therefore is not permitted. You can have a garage sale, but under the current regulations, it's free to do a garage or.
How difficult would it be to distinguish food trucks as temporary outdoor sales and without having to define exactly what that is, to just look at that as eliminating the charge, but still implementing some charge for temporary outdoor sales? That's a difficult thing to try to grasp.
It would need to be very delineated, because what is an ice cream place? Is that a food truck or is it not? What would be a place that was selling candy bars? What about a stand selling Girl Scout cookies? What about, I would want very clear guidance on where that line was for us to charge if that was permitted.
So a reasonable way to move would be to look at eliminating any fee, but requiring a permit for all outdoor temporary sales.
I think that it is a good idea for particularly the city, so that the firemen and the police department are aware of when there's an event that's going on of a size in excess of what typically occurs at that location. And so a permit, regardless of the fee, would allow the city to be aware that this event was happening on this day at this location.
And even though it's very difficult to understand, explain that yard sales are not really addressed as temporary outdoor sales. You briefly mentioned that it's somewhere else and it's not along with temporary outdoor sales. It stands on its own independently.
Right. It's in a different location within the Code of Ordinances. And when this first came up, we actually found that there was an incongruity within the development ordinance and the Code of Ordinances. And as you're aware, if you have two pieces, one of which is stricter than the other, the stricter law abides. That's why when we drive into Graham, there's a speed limit, green sign that says speed limit 35 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. Wherever there's a posted speed limit sign that's lower or higher, that's the speed limit on that road, despite the fact that the speed limit in Graham is 35 miles everywhere else.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's go to the floor. Any comments for the floor? Is the applicant here and would like to speak on this matter? Janae, come on up.
Hello, Janae Farrar, 141 East Hardin Street. I'll read from part of the email that I had sent to Nathan. It does originally say that I have paid $600 to date. That's amended to $300. I got a check from the city for that, just from 50 to 25. I'm looking to ask City Council to vote to amend the outside sales ordinance to change the cost of the permits from 50/25 to 0, specifically for food trucks on private property. Food trucks drive people directly to my business. My revenue increases when we host food trucks, which tax dollars from my business to Graham and to Alamance County. When we introduced food trucks on one particular day of the week, our sales increased by 385% over days without food trucks on the same day of the week. That's an average that doesn't include this week's data, or it's an average that was correct as of the date this email was sent, which I think was less than 2 weeks ago. So that's giant. That means that more people are coming to my business, more people are coming to the city of Graham. Some of these food trucks have a following. We'll actually see people pull onto our property just because the food truck is there and they have more interest in that than my business, which is totally fine by me because they're checking Graham out and eventually, hopefully they'll come to my spot or they'll come to one of the other spots. A lot of us support each other and say, have you checked out Hi-Fi Records? Have you checked out Beer Co? It's kind of a communal thing. We as a community kind of work together. But the bottom line is that these people are coming. My business has increased drastically on one particular day where I introduced food trucks. And a census is being penalized for improving my business and for bringing revenue and tax dollars into Graham and into Alamance County. So I would just look to have that amended to $0 so I can keep doing what I'm doing, keep submitting the permits and keep bringing people to the place that I love.
All right. Janae, some questions
Yeah,
for us?
absolutely.
Questions for Janae?
Yeah, just when you've applied for these permits and paid these fees, describe that process.
I do a file folder in a cabinet at Forgotten Road Ales, and it's the generic form for the outside sales application. I just fill that in. I have parts of it pre-filled in. I submit these forms so often. I keep a folder with these forms in them where I've already pre-filled out the information, signed my name, and I just really need to enter the information for the food truck in on that. But basically, I fill out a form. I have food trucks every single Saturday with an occasional week there might not be one. I've been having them every other Sunday. I'm looking to add some more days of the week to that. I scheduled one awesome food truck just today for later in the year on a Thursday, which is really cool. But I'm taking in these permits along with a check and dropping them off.
Where do you take them, just out of curiosity?
I just take them inside and to the left into the planning department.
Good. Okay. Melanie?
Janae, I appreciate the fact that you're doing this so frequently, and we appreciate your patience in doing that. I think you understand the importance of why we have the permit. I don't necessarily agree with why we're doing the fee right now on private property, but I appreciate you going through that process. And you understand as well that, if we're eliminating all the fees that you always have been responsible. That's not going to change with insurance if there's any damage from those food trucks that results in our water.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Okay. Only question is, the Thursday for that fantastic food truck, what's the date on that?
Cousins Maine Lobster, December 19th, for the Forgotten Road Ales Ugly Sweater Christmas Party.
December the 19th.
Yeah, write that one down. Cousins Maine, so that's a huge one. It's an awesome one, so.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else like to comment on this? Come on up, Barry.
Barry Coach, favor and encourage the council to consider dropping the fee to zero across the board for all the temporary outdoor sales. These events, whether it's a food truck or some other type of item or production or promotion, actually acts as a magnet for outside business. Come and be introduced to other properties. We do have a good network of all the entertainment venues that do recommend one another. When there's a special event at Forgotten Road Ales, I see traffic coming my way. I see Daniel's Way at Maple Street Tavern. I see it at Hi-Fi. I see it at Sutton's. All those places benefit from it. And as she made the very good point, the fee nowhere ingratiates the general fund more than the tax revenue. So I encourage you to pass this, and I would encourage you to make it zero for all temporary outdoor sales.
Thank you, Barry. Anyone else like to comment on it? Come on up.
Rick Irby, Graham, North Carolina. I support the $0 for private property. I do think there's maybe a conflict of public property versus private because of parking in the road. You may have runoff and the city may have to clean it up. So I could see there could be some cost in that direction. But with this particular example, her property is perfect for this type of operation. And I would strongly just consider just waiving the no fee for private property. They do a great job, and I'm sure there's other areas in it catch on and do as well. So that's what I would recommend.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Hi, Janet.
Janet Eckelbarger, 604 Washington. I recently applied for one of these, and it was the most confusing process. I had no idea if I was applying for my space, for the year, for a truck, for multiple trucks. I had no idea. It was just like, okay, it's $50, fine, here's $50. And then they said, oh, you paid too much, here's your $25 back. And frankly, it looked a little silly, the whole thing, because I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was happy to pay for whatever it was, and then I got a refund. So I think there's a big confusion here, and there was all this talk in the beginning about, do we want food trucks? Do we not want food trucks? They're here. We want them. They're great. People love them. We should encourage them for free.
Okay, thank you. Anyone? Yes, please, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Irby's wife. He's more conservative, I'm more moderate. But one particular night, my daughter and I didn't know what we were going to do. We got on Facebook. We saw that Forgotten Road Ales was having a food truck. We went. And we're free anyway because they have the greatest beer, I think, ever. But we went and we had Haitian food and we split a dish. And it was probably some of the best food we ever had. And so I support this. I support what's going on in Graham. I'm excited about what's going on in Graham. And so I give you all, I pray for a lot of wisdom for all of you as we move forward as a council and as a county and so anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment? All right, with no other comments, I'll go to council for discussion or a motion.
So we've got two issues. One, to say specific private property. My question is on public property. Do we know that already, Nathan, with our events ordinance?
Yeah, it would require the city council's approval for anyone to use the public property as purpose. The one exception being the county is also public property, so the permission for an event, if they were to have a food truck or the sheriff's office, they could also do so through this process. But you would need, I don't know whether you need Amy Gailey's signature or Brian Haygood's signature, or we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
So if we kept specifically for private property, then the other question turns out to be, do we consider it for outdoor sales, or do we just do food trucks? I'm kind of leaning on the outdoor sales
I am as well.
as a general
I think it should be
way.
fair across the board for everyone.
I agree.
Yeah.
Private property is kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
So I make a motion that we adjust we don't have a fee schedule, that we adjust the fee to amend the outdoor sales ordinance to be $0 for a permit, specifically for outdoor sales event on private property.
I think that's a good motion. Does that cover?
Anything we need to?
I think the one piece that maybe missed from that motion is the word temporary, which is,
Temporary outdoor sales.
Temporary outdoor sales?
yes.
Sure.
And if that's included, then
I would like to amend my motion to include temporary, the word temporary in outdoor sales, please.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? If not, I'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right, so now we'll go to items not on tonight's agenda. I think we've got one person signed up to speak, and that's Dean Coleman. Dean Coleman. Dean.
That's me. A little bit slow. My name is Dean Coleman. I live on 2839 Rogers Road, Graham, North Carolina. I live out of the city limits, but I do live in the zoning area, across the bridge down from Lacey Holt Road. My concern, folks, is the traffic on Rogers Road. I moved there in 2003, and I didn't realize that was a racetrack road when I moved there. I might not even have done it, but anyway, it's still that way. From about 6:30 to 8:30, it's really terrible. The cars are just buzzing by. If you don't believe it, come over and sit in my driveway. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's really dangerous. It was dangerous then, but what concerns me now, folks, and y'all know this better than I do, they're building 300 houses, give or take, on Rogers Road. They've torn down trees and built these houses, which is none of my business. I mean, people got a right to do what they want to on their property. But the problem is, and also there's property for sale on the right side of the road now, up from the church, on the right-hand side of Lacey Holt Road. So I don't know if they're going to go in there and tear down trees and build houses too. But anyway, I don't know if anybody in this audience lives on Rogers, but if you got 300 houses, that's 300 cars, maybe 600 cars. Some people have got 3. Also, it means if every mile, that's 300 children. If they got 2, that's 600 children. Where are all these kids going to go to school? Are they going to go to Southern? Are they going to go to Graham? Sure that schools have considered all this in their renovations or additions to Southern Alamance High School. Seen some of them, but it just seems like that there's no end to it on Rogers Road. And I am concerned, and I believe I talked to you, Lee, on the phone about, is there any greenways that will be built, or with any bike routes that will be built along Rogers Road, because kids are going to go to that park down there. And actually, the reason I came to, I just say hello, but
Well, thank you for that.
didn't aim to speak because I'm not much of a speaker. But anyway, I just was coming up from the church up towards Lacey Holt Road, and there was 4 kids on bicycles. I was coming up Lacey Holt Road, and here it comes over the hill there that comes up from my house at the bridge at the Great Alamance Creek. And I thought was going to run over. I thought kids were going to get run over. My point, I guess, is y'all really need to consider doing something about bike route, because kids are going to ride, their bikes are walk, and there's nowhere to. Now, I know that some housing development set aside greenway areas, playground areas, I guess, in these housing developments, which is good. And I just wonder how that can be connected so that the kids can come around behind and come out some of the roads over there towards the park, which, there's houses being built there too. I guess that's progress. I don't know. But I just wonder if y'all had any comments. I know that when I have spoke before, usually the Board of Education, for instance, and the county commissioners, you can state your problems, but 3 questions. They might discuss it later. And I appreciate y'all, whether y'all do this. I don't know if I had 3 minutes or what.
No, you get as much time as you want to
But,
discuss. You're fine.
I'm just concerned that somebody's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then that's when we wished we had done something.
Yeah.
Now, I'm telling you, something is going to happen, and it's not going to be good when all these houses are built. Now, if you don't believe me, you go down Rogers Road and take a look from about at the park on up towards my house, which is across Lacey Holt Road down to the bottom where the bridge is. It's really something, and I don't know if the Southern Island, is some of these kids going to go to Graham High School or elementary school? Maybe that's a question I need to ask the Board of Education.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's going to be annexed, isn't it, in the city of Graham? So you would think they would go to the Graham schools,
Yeah.
elementary schools, middle schools, high schools.
Well, I can tell you, Mr. Coleman, we got a council member who's a longtime resident over there who's actually had some concerns about that as well. So I'm sure the great thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I just, I've lived there for 16 years, and I really enjoy it. When I moved there from town and country because I wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle and the quarry where the police shot over there in the course where they chase each other around. And then when I hear gunshot, I guess there must be ACC is training the officers on Boggs Ranch Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting away from it now. I'm sitting outside and I'm hearing it again. But that's okay. I mean, I understand folks have got to be trained and all that. So if you have any comments about that, I'd like to hear it. I don't believe at it, but y'all got any comments? I mean, y'all going to start building a bicycle route on the roadside?
Well, I think it's correct to say it's a state road. Is that correct?
It is. Most of those questions, I can do it now or one-on-one meeting. I'll start with the development. I think the first question was, there is a lot of development pressure on Rogers Road. We're going to see more. Rogers Road, Lacey Holt Road, South Main Street. It's only going to continue. We're in a market that piques the interest of development. So we're going to see continued pressure. So with development, they go through a process. Sometimes it's a legislative process for a rezoning or a special use permit. But even in the absence of that legislative process, there's administrative processes. We normally refer to those as a technical review committee process. In that process, the DOT, and Rogers Road is a DOT owned and maintained road, is part of that process, and they will evaluate, they will require some level of traffic impact analysis. It may not be a full-blown analysis, but they may do at least a calculation on the impact to the roadway. That will sometimes dictate what we call off-site improvements, which could be turning lanes or signalization. To this point, with the exception of maybe some turn lanes, I don't think that's warranted any major of Rogers Road or resulted in any change to the speed limit. I do know that the city has reached out and asked DOT on a couple of occasions to evaluate the speed limit and the potential for signalization at Lacey Holt Road. None of the conditions merit any changes at this time. That's not to say that the future growth doesn't change those conditions, But at this point, the 40, I believe it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit that.
Well, it was 45 and they changed it to, down to 40 all the way to, where Roger Road did end.
Our indication from DOT is that's going to remain. To answer your question about the schools, the city limits do not change the school district boundaries. The area of Rogers Road, most of the development is in the southern district. There is some in the Graham district. As far as bike paths and greenways and things like that, my knowledge, there's no bike or pedestrian infrastructure planned for Rogers Road. Internal to the subdivisions, there are sidewalks that are required by the city, so there will be internal pedestrian infrastructure. Most of the development we're trying to offer the development to build floodplains in areas like that that are environmentally sensitive, which also provides some buffer and the potential for greenways. But to my knowledge, there are no greenways currently proposed.
Well, you know, here's another thing too, folks, is that every sort of uses that road or 49 to come in to Graham or Burlington. And it's going to continue as housing developments are built other places. I guess it's going to affect everybody. But I know y'all are smart people. And that you might take that under consideration somewhere down the line.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Coleman, have you seen any improvement with the reduction in speed limit?
No.
Yeah.
It's no.
I was afraid that was going to be the
I
answer.
mow right beside, my house is off the road, but I mow right on the road to try to keep it nice. And people are just about kill you, run over you. I know.
Yeah.
It's come so close, I could feel the wind right beside of me, you know.
And Mr. Coleman, we've also had some targeted enforcement on Rogers Road, probably as much between Rogers Road, maybe Main Street and 54. Those three areas have probably received the most attention as far as targeted enforcement for speeding. I believe we may have pulled it up now, but in the last few weeks or last month or so, we've had a smart sign out there telling
Still there.
folks, it's still there, telling folks what their speed is. The sign does a couple of things. Number one, it warns the motorist as to their speed. Number two, it's gathering data. So we know how fast people are driving. Often it seems like everybody is speeding, but generally the evidence is the other way around, that most are within a reasonable speed. I think most of those studies, I can only remember one where it came back and we had a really, really bad speeding problem.
Well, I know Graham has a greenway plan.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't that be connected into the present greenway plan? Because golly, you can look at all the people you're going to connect that will go to this nice little park you got over there. I used to be in Parks and Recreation, and I worked with Ray Fogman on getting some money for that little park. It used to be a waste treatment plant, wastewater plant. Ugly, really ugly. But now look at that beautiful park. So kids and adults too are all going to be drawn to that focal point of that community. So I just don't want to see anybody get hurt.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. So with nothing else on the agenda, I'll go to staff. Nathan?
No, sir.
Aaron?
No, sir.
Council? Brian? Nothing? Darcy, got anything for us?
No, sir.
Melanie?
Yes, I would. Just to finish out what Dean was talking about, I think that it is, while we are doing our master plan for the city right now, Parks and Recreation, that is a key area that we need to be concerned with. I think we've said before, we keep it every opportunity we get for greenways and buffers along our streams, that we continue to take a look at that in our plans. And so I'm hoping, Dean, that we'll see that, the greenways coming forth in that plan soon. He is not going to tell you this, but I am going to tell you this. You need to know. It is important. I'm one of the few people probably still around who knows this. This is R. Dean Coleman. He was the president of North Carolina Recreation and Park Association for several years. He is also the person who applied for land and water conservation grants for the city of Graham with the assistance of our city manager at that time to build Graham Municipal Park. Let me rephrase, Bill Cook Park and South Graham. This gentleman has been in the county, he was the county director for many years, but he has always helped the city of Graham become more and be more of what it is. So Thank you, Dean, for what you've done for the city all these years. We appreciate you. Even though you've lived in Burlington and lived out in the county, you've always taken care of the city of Graham, and we appreciate you.
Words I don't get me anymore.
Secondly, I would like to be sure that the city knows and you're aware, all the council, that we have a young man, Mr. Chris Clipping, who is the athletic director for the City of Graham Recreation and Parks Department, who has just been yesterday, I would think today, as he has been awarded from the North Carolina Recreation and Park Association, the Young Professional Award. I can't even begin to tell you what a big deal that is in our state and in our profession. He is our second young professional in probably 5 years or so. So we have a great deal to be proud of in this city.
Thank you, Melody. Very good. Griffin?
Absolutely. I echo this from Melody and say our thoughts are with the mayor and Chip Turner as well.
Yep, very well.
Thank you. Just told me to speed sign down. So our street department just informed me that they have just taken the speed control sign down on Rogers Road. Yes.
Well, then I can speed then, right?
Join everyone else.
Mr. Valina to say about that.
I don't have anything, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. I did not know that about you. Oh, gone, man. I'm glad. How are you?